The ashes of the civil war had barely cooled. Vespasian, the old soldier, had rebuilt Rome, restored order, and given the empire something it hadn't had in decades: stability. After Vespasian came his son, Titus, the beloved emperor whose short, golden reign ended almost as soon as it began, and after Titus came his brother, a man Rome would come to fear more than any enemy beyond its borders, a man who trusted no one, not even his own shadow, a man whose paranoia became law. This is the story of Domitian, the emperor who ruled through fear, suspicion, and absolute control. Domitian never expected to become emperor. He grew up in the long shadow of his father Vespasian and his brother Titus. Both were celebrated military heroes, men of action, adored by the legions and the people. Domitian, in contrast, was the quiet one, the bookish one. Some say he was isolated, awkward in public. A young man whispered about more than he was respected. He was the spare, not the heir. But when Titus died suddenly without a son to succeed him, the throne was empty. In that moment of uncertainty, Domitian stepped forward, claiming the power as if he had been waiting for it his entire life. The transition was swift, almost too swift for some. Many Romans hoped they had gained a steady hand to continue the work of his father and brother. Others, however, felt a chill in the air. They believed a storm was coming. In the end, both would be right. At first, Domitian proved himself to be a surprisingly efficient and capable administrator. He strengthened the empire's borders, personally leading campaigns on the frontier. He rebuilt armies, ensuring the loyalty of the soldiers with generous pay. He cracked down hard on corruption in the provinces, appointing honest governors and punishing those who exploited the people. He poured money into rebuilding Rome, which had suffered from fires, constructing magnificent new buildings and temples. The empire's finances stabilized. On the surface, Rome was thriving. But beneath this veneer of competence and order, something darker was stirring. Domitian held a core belief that the empire could only function through absolute obedience, and obedience was best secured through fear. He had a deep-seated contempt for the Senate, viewing its members as arrogant, decadent, and untrustworthy. He demanded they address him not just as emperor, but as Dominus et Deus, Lord and God. This wasn't just a title. It was a demand for total submission. He interrogated generals returning from successful campaigns, his mind always twisting victory into a potential threat to his own power. He established a vast network of informers, or delatores, who were rewarded for reporting any hint of dissent. A careless joke, a private complaint, a misspoken word at a dinner party, all could be twisted into treason. Domitian wasn't just the ruler of Rome. He wanted to be the ruler of every thought and every mind within it. And paranoia is a hunger that never stops growing. As his reign wore on, Domitian began to see enemies everywhere. His suspicion curdled into a constant, gnawing terror. A general pausing for a moment before speaking. He must be hiding something. A senator skipping a banquet. An act of defiance. A poet writing a verse that could be interpreted as criticism. A death sentence. Domitian transformed the imperial palace into a fortress of paranoia. He had the walls of the porticos where he walked lined with highly polished stone, so their mirror-like surface would reveal anyone approaching from behind. He was said to sleep with daggers hidden beneath his pillows. He made it a strict rule that no one could ever enter a room behind him. The most powerful man in the world, the Emperor of Rome, lived in a state of constant, suffocating terror, convinced that every friend, every advisor, every servant was a potential assassin. And what an emperor fears, an emperor eventually destroys. But here lies the great contradiction of Domitian's rule. While he cowered in the shadows of his own mind, he demanded the world see him as a living god. He wanted worship, not just respect. Statues of himself, often in gold or silver, were erected across the empire. He carved his name onto monuments, sometimes even erasing the names of the original builders to claim them as his own. He insisted that senators, no matter how old or frail, must rise when he entered a room and remain standing in his presence. He craved the adoration and immortality of a deity. But gods do not fear shadows. Gods are not startled by footsteps. Domitian was the more he demanded devotion, the more his subjects whispered against him. The golden mask of divinity couldn't hide the terrified man underneath, and the people of Rome could see the cracks. The turning point came when whispers of a real conspiracy began to circulate through the palace. Whether the plot was real or imagined at first, it didn't matter. For Domitian, the mere rumor was proof. He snapped. His controlled paranoia erupted into a brutal, frantic purge that shook the very foundations of Rome. Senators who had served his family for decades vanished overnight. Decorated generals were recalled from the frontier and quietly executed. Writers and philosophers who promoted ideals of freedom and republican virtue were banished or forced to take their own lives. Anyone with wealth, influence, or an independent mind became a target. A threat was anything Domitian could not control, and threats had to be erased. Rome had seen monstrous emperors before. It had endured the madness of Caligula and the theatrical cruelty of Nero. But Domitian's tyranny was different. It wasn't born of impulsive mania or artistic vanity. It was cold, systematic, and chillingly rational. It was the slow, deliberate tightening of a fist around the empire's throat. His reign of terror was not a fiery explosion but a creeping, suffocating darkness. And that darkness was beginning to crush Rome itself. But even absolute fear has its limits. Domitian believed he could control everything and everyone. He never saw the one truth that would end him. The real plotters were not the enemies he imagined outside the palace walls. They were inside. They were the people he saw every day. His most trusted chamberlains, his own court officials, even, some historians suspect, his own wife Domitia, may have known about the plan, perhaps even participating after learning her own name was on his execution list. One quiet afternoon, as Domitian was preparing for his day, a servant approached him with a document, claiming it contained urgent news of a conspiracy. While the emperor was distracted, another conspirator locked the doors. A third drew a blade. The emperor, who trusted no one, had finally trusted the wrong people. Domitian, a physically imposing man, fought back fiercely, screaming and clawing at the assassins he had spent a lifetime fearing. But it was too late. He died on the floor of his own chamber. Rome did not mourn him. When the news broke, the Senate erupted in celebration. In a furious act of revenge, they decreed a damnatio memoria, a damnation of memory. His statues were pulled down and shattered. His name was chiseled off public monuments. All official records of his reign were ordered destroyed. It was the ultimate Roman punishment, to be erased from history, to be utterly forgotten. With Domitian's death, the Flavian dynasty collapsed. 3 Emperors Vespasian, Titus, and Domitian had guided Rome through fire, love, and finally, fear. The empire now stood at a crossroads, reeling from a decade of tyranny. It needed stability. It needed wisdom. It needed a leader who could heal the deep wounds left by paranoia and bloodshed. And somehow, miraculously, Rome would find one. From the ashes of Domitian's reign of terror, the Senate would choose an old, respected senator to take the throne. A man who would begin an era remembered as the empire's golden age. Next time, we explore the story of Nerva, the unexpected emperor who saved Rome from itself and ushered in the dawn of the 5 good emperors. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for the next chapter of our story.